Welcome back to my YouTube channel Coin Secrets Somewhere in America. Right now, a small copper coin is sitting quietly in a drawer, a jar, maybe even your pocket. It looks ordinary, feels ordinary, and yet it has sold for over $500,000. Yes, $543,000 for a single penny. Now here's the uncomfortable question most people don't like asking themselves. What if you already had one and never knew it? Stay with me because the next few minutes could permanently change the way you look at every coin you owe. In 1967, the United States Mint produced millions of Lincoln 1-cent coins. No mint marks, no fanfare, no warning signs, just everyday pennies released into circulation during a turbulent era in American history. Vietnam, civil rights, cultural revolution, and while the nation was focused on change, something extraordinary slipped through the cracks of the minting process. An error so rare, so elusive, that today collectors and elite investors are willing to pay life-changing money to own just one example. And the most dangerous part? Most people still think all pennies are worth exactly 1 cent. That assumption has already cost Americans millions. Now let's pause for a second, because this is where people usually say, "Come on, it's just a penny." And that's exactly what everyone said, until auction houses started reporting six-figure results. Humor me for a moment. Have you ever ignored a penny on the ground? Congratulations. You may have just walked past a luxury car. That's not hype. That's history talking. The 1967 no-mint mark Lincoln cent error isn't valuable because it's old. It's valuable because it should not exist the way it does. Minting errors during this period were subtle, often microscopic, and devastatingly expensive when discovered today. Off-metal strikes, double dies, wrong planchets, mistakes that slipped through quality control and entered circulation unnoticed. Decades later, when advanced collectors and grading services confirmed their authenticity, the market exploded. Demand surged, supply stayed nearly non-existent, and prices followed only one direction: up. This is where fear quietly creeps in. Because once a coin like this is publicly identified, graded, and sold, it's removed from circulation forever. That means every year, fewer remain undiscovered. Fewer chances. Less opportunity. The clock is not just ticking, it's accelerating. And if you're thinking, someone else probably already found them all, history says the opposite. Rare coins are still being discovered by everyday Americans, retirees, heirs, collectors who finally decided to look closely. The difference between them and everyone else? They paid attention. Let me ask you something that might make you uncomfortable in a good way. If a single penny could pay off your home, fund your retirement, or completely redefine your lifestyle, wouldn't it be irresponsible not to check? This isn't about luck. This is about awareness. The wealthy don't stumble into value. They recognize it before others do. By the time a 1967 Lincoln cent error reaches an auction block, it's no longer just a coin. It's a verified asset, a historical artifact, a tangible store of wealth. High-net-worth collectors compete quietly, aggressively, and decisively for these pieces. Why? Because rare coins don't behave like stocks. They aren't tied to interest rates. They don't panic. They don't disappear overnight. They sit patiently appreciating, while demand continues to rise. And the finest examples, especially confirmed errors, are already commanding prices north of $500,000. Here's a quick pattern interrupt before we go any further. If Abraham Lincoln were alive today and knew his penny was worth more than most homes, he'd probably say, "I told you so." Jokes aside, the irony is powerful. The smallest denomination in American currency has quietly become one of the most lucrative. Now we enter the final act. And this is where urgency matters. The market is watching. Professional buyers are watching. Grading services are overwhelmed. And the window for discovery is narrowing. Every year, more coins are authenticated. Every year, fewer remain hidden. If you own old coins, inherited collections, or jars that haven't been touched in decades, you are sitting on unanswered questions. And unanswered questions are where fortunes are either made or missed. This isn't about hype. It's about timing. The people who win in rare coins aren't the ones who wait for headlines. They're the ones who act before the story becomes common knowledge. The 1967 no-mint Mark Lincoln cent error has already proven its value. The only question left is whether you'll be part of the discovery or the person who says, "I used to have one of those." So here's your moment. Take a closer look. Examine what you own. Because wealth doesn't always announce itself with noise. Sometimes, it whispers from the bottom of a drawer, disguised as a penny. Imagine this for a moment. Somewhere in America, right now, a single brown penny sits quietly in a drawer, a jar, maybe even between couch cushions. It looks ordinary, feels ordinary. And yet, if it happens to be the right 1969 D. Lincoln 1 cent with the right mint error, it could be worth up to $387,000. Yes, one penny. Not a gold bar. Not a stock portfolio. A penny. And here's the uncomfortable question most people don't want to ask themselves. What if you already owned one and didn't know it? This story begins in 1969, a turbulent year in American history. The moon landing, the Vietnam War, social upheaval, and quietly, deep inside the Denver Mint, a small mistake slipped past quality control. No alarms. No headlines. Just steel, copper, and human error. That mistake would go on to become one of the most sought-after Lincoln cent varieties ever pursued by serious collectors. And the irony? These coins were never meant to be special. They were made for everyday Americans, passed hand to hand, spent on coffee, newspapers, and gas. That's what makes this story so powerful. Wealth didn't arrive dressed in luxury. It arrived disguised as spare change. Now let's talk about fear for a second, because this is where most people miss out. Every year, millions of old coins are dumped back into circulation, sold in bulk, or tossed aside because someone assumed it's just a penny. Collectors call this the silent loss. The value doesn't disappear, the opportunity does. And if you're watching this video, chances are you're already aware that coins are not just history. They're assets, portable, private, and increasingly scarce. The demand isn't slowing down. It's accelerating. The 1969 D. Lincoln cent error sits in a category that elite collectors obsess over. Strong mint mark years, low discovery rates, authentication challenges that keep amateurs out and professionals locked in competition. This is the kind of coin that doesn't wait for sellers, it attracts buyers. When authenticated examples surface, they don't linger. They spark bidding wars. Auction houses promote them aggressively. Private collectors step in fast. And prices climb not because of hype, but because supply is razor thin and demand is relentless. Here's a quick pattern interrupt, because I know what you might be thinking. If it's worth that much, wouldn't I have heard about it already? Fair question. But let me flip that around. Do you personally know anyone who checks pennies with a magnifier before spending them? Exactly. Most fortunes aren't lost because people are careless. They're lost because people are busy. And busy people overlook quiet opportunities. What makes this coin so compelling isn't just the money. It's what the money represents. Freedom, security, options, the ability to turn forgotten metal into a powerful financial move. For many sellers, a single rare coin has paid off homes, eliminated debt, funded businesses, or secured retirement. This isn't fantasy. This is the real, documented behavior of the high-end coin market in the United States. And here's where excitement kicks in. Right now, we're living in a period where American era coins are in extreme demand. Wealthy collectors are actively hunting. Investment funds are entering numismatics. Certification standards are tighter than ever, which means verified examples command premium prices. When a coin like a 1969 D-era penny surfaces, the question isn't if it will sell. The question is how high it will go and how fast. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you actually looked closely at your old coins? Not glanced. Looked. Because the difference between a 1-cent coin and a six-figure asset can be thinner than a strand of hair. And yes, that's both thrilling and slightly terrifying. But that's also where opportunity lives. As we move toward the end of this story, urgency matters. Markets don't wait. Once a rare coin is discovered and absorbed into a private collection, it can vanish for decades, sometimes forever. The window belongs to the informed, not the curious. If you own old U.S. coins, especially pennies from key years, you are not holding pocket change. You're holding a possibility. So here's the takeaway. Simple, powerful, and worth remembering. Wealth doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it whispers from a drawer, a box, or a forgotten jar. The 1969 Lincoln cent error is proof that American history, mistakes and all, can reward those who pay attention. And if living a wealthy lifestyle begins with recognizing value where others don't, then this might be the most important penny you ever look at. Imagine this for a moment. Somewhere in America right now, a small brown penny is sitting quietly in a drawer, a coffee can, or a forgotten piggy bank. It doesn't shine. It doesn't scream luxury. And yet, experts say this exact coin could be worth up to $654,000. Not a gold bar, not a diamond, a 1985 Lincoln 1-cent penny. If that sentence made your heart beat just a little faster, good, because what you're about to hear could completely change the way you look at loose change forever. This story begins the same way most life-changing stories do, with something ordinary that everyone ignores. In 1985, the Denver Mint struck billions of Lincoln pennies. People spent them on coffee, parking meters, and vending machines. No one celebrated them. No one saved them. And that's exactly why a tiny number of error coins slipped through the system, coins that were never meant to exist. Coins with flaws so rare, so precise, that today they are being hunted by elite collectors with very deep pockets. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people already owned one at some point and spent it without knowing. Yes, that stings a little. Now let's pause for a second. Be honest. How many pennies have you thrown away in your lifetime? Thousands? Tens of thousands? If pennies had feelings, they'd be filing emotional damage claims right now. But jokes aside, this is where fear quietly creeps in. Fear of missing out. Fear that the coin that could have paid off a house, funded retirement, or rewritten your family legacy slipped through your fingers because no one ever told you what to look for. That fear is real, and it's justified. Here's where the story shifts. Because the 1985 Lincoln penny error is not just rare, it's legendary. Certain examples show dramatic double die errors, off-metal strikes, and striking anomalies so extreme that grading services stopped calling them mistakes and started calling them numismatic events. These aren't damaged coins. These are mint-born errors, flaws created during the striking process itself. And collectors don't see flaws. They see opportunity. They see prestige. They see history frozen in copper. One verified specimen stunned the market when its valuation approached $654,000. Not because of hype, not because of luck, but because of demand. High-end collectors compete fiercely for coins like this. Museums want them. Private investors want them. Legacy builders want them. When one surfaces, it doesn't sit around waiting for a buyer. It creates a bidding war. And that's the part most people don't understand. This market isn't weak, it's hungry. Let me ask you something, and be warned, this question resets your brain. If someone offered you a single penny or a brand new luxury car, you'd laugh at the penny. But what if that penny was the luxury car? What if it was the down payment on a beach house? That's the mental shift that separates casual spenders from serious wealth builders. Coins like the 1985 error penny force us to confront how often opportunity disguises itself as something small. Act 2 is where awareness turns into urgency. Because here's the reality. The supply is fixed. The US Mint will never make another 1985 penny. And every year, more of these rare error coins are lost, damaged, or melted. Meanwhile, demand keeps climbing as collectors age, wealth concentrates, and tangible assets become more desirable than ever. This is not a trend. It's a collision of scarcity and desire. And collisions create explosions in value. Some people hear this and think, that sounds nice, but I'll probably never find one. That thought alone has cost people millions. The truth is, many of these coins were found by ordinary Americans, retirees, mechanics, teachers, people who simply took a closer look at what they already had. No insider access, no secret vaults, just curiosity and awareness. And yes, sometimes a magnifying glass and a little patience. Not exactly James Bond equipment, is it? Let's lighten the mood for a second. If pennies could talk, the 1985 error penny would probably say, You ignored me for 40 years? And now you want my autograph? Humor aside, this coin has become a symbol of something much bigger. It represents the idea that wealth doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it whispers, and only those who slow down long enough hear it. Now we enter Act 3, the moment of decision. Because stories like this always come down to a choice. You can treat this as entertainment, nod along, and go back to life as usual. Or you can recognize that you are living in a moment of opportunity. Right now, today, the market for rare US coins is strong, confident, and aggressive. Serious buyers are actively searching for authenticated error pennies, especially from the 1980s. And when they find one, they don't negotiate emotionally. They negotiate with checks. If you own old coins, inherited collections, jars of change, or even rolls of pennies tucked away somewhere, the smartest move is not to dismiss them. It's to respect them, to have them properly examined. Because the cost of curiosity is small, and the cost of ignorance can be enormous. This isn't about gambling. It's about awareness. It's about positioning yourself on the right side of history and demand. Think about what $654,000 represents. Freedom, security, options, the ability to say no when you want, yes when it matters, and legacy when it counts. And all of it, potentially, starting with a coin most people wouldn't bend down to pick up off the sidewalk. So here's the final thought I want to leave you with. Wealth often rewards those who pay attention. The 1985 D. Lincoln 1-cent error penny is proof that value is not always obvious, but it is always precise. Somewhere, that coin is waiting. The only question is, will you be the one who recognizes it before someone else does? Imagine this for a second. Somewhere in America, right now, a single copper-colored penny sits quietly, worth more than most luxury homes. Not a gold bar, not a stock certificate, a penny. And here's the unsettling question that should already have your attention racing. What if you've already held one like it in your hand and spent it without ever knowing? Today, we're uncovering the extraordinary story of the 1996 D. Lincoln 1-cent error coin. A coin so rare, so aggressively hunted by elite collectors, that verified examples have reached values as high as $732,000. Yes, for 1 cent. And before you laugh and say, "Come on, it's just a penny," remember this: every major fortune begins with someone knowing something others ignore. This story unfolds in 3 acts, and like all great stories, it begins quietly. Act 1 is about the ordinary world, the one we all recognize. In 1996, millions of Lincoln pennies rolled out of the Denver Mint. They passed through cash registers, gas stations, coffee shops, and grocery stores without a second thought. These coins were never meant to be special. They were never supposed to change lives. And that's exactly what makes this story so powerful. Hidden among these everyday coins was a microscopic mistake. A minting error so subtle yet so catastrophic to perfection that it transformed a common cent into a once-in-a-generation treasure. Errors like this are the nightmares of the US Mint and the holy grail of serious collectors. When the system slips, wealth is created. Here's where your pulse should pick up. The 1996 D error cent isn't about scratches or damage. It's about a genuine mint error, something that occurred during the striking process itself. Coins like this exist because machines, dies, and human oversight collided at the wrong moment. And when that happens, the result is scarcity so extreme that collectors don't ask, "Is it expensive?" They ask, "Who do I have to outbid?" This specific error variety is so rare that most Americans will never see one in their lifetime. Yet a verified specimen entered the high-end collector market and ignited a feeding frenzy, eventually reaching a jaw-dropping valuation of $732,000. Let that sink in. That's retirement money. That's legacy money. That's never work another day unless you want a money. Act 2 is where tension enters the story, and this is where fear and excitement collide. Once word of this error leaked into elite numismatic circles, demand exploded. Wealthy collectors don't chase coins like this for fun. They chase them because rarity equals power. Owning something that almost no one else on earth can own is the ultimate status symbol. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people miss these opportunities because they assume wealth always looks obvious. Gold bars look valuable. Rare paintings look valuable. But a penny? That's how fortunes slip through fingers. And yes, that's supposed to make you a little uneasy. Because the idea that life-changing wealth could hide in plain sight challenges everything we're taught about money. Let's interrupt the tension for a second with a simple, almost humorous thought. If someone offered you a penny on the street, would you even bend down to pick it up? Most people wouldn't. And yet, that reflex, ignoring the small, the ordinary, the underestimated, is exactly what separates those who stumble into opportunity from those who walk right past it. Coins like the 1996 D-error cent prove that the system doesn't reward size. It rewards knowledge. And knowledge, once you have it, changes the way you look at everything in your pocket. As the market caught on, competition intensified. Private collectors, auction houses, and high-net-worth investors began aggressively searching old rolls, estate collections, and forgotten jars of coins. Why? Because the supply is effectively frozen. No more of these errors will ever be made. The mint moved on. The moment passed. All that remains are the few surviving examples that escape detection. That's why the current market doesn't behave rationally. It behaves urgently. When a specimen appears, buyers don't hesitate. They act. Because hesitation is how someone else becomes wealthy instead of you. Now we arrive at Act 3, the moment of realization and transformation. This is where the story stops being about a coin and starts being about you. The 1996 D. Lincoln cent error represents something much bigger than copper and zinc. It represents awareness. It represents the idea that wealth isn't always earned through years of labor alone. It's sometimes discovered through attention. The collectors who understand this don't just look at coins. They look at possibilities. And they know that the greatest risk isn't buying the wrong coin. It's ignoring the right one right now. The demand for ultra-rare U.S. mint errors is at historic levels. The generation that built wealth is now competing to preserve it, and tangible assets like rare coins are one of the most trusted vehicles for that transfer. A coin with a documented history, extreme scarcity, and a story that captures imagination becomes more than an object. It becomes a financial instrument, and the 1996 D-error cent sits at the top of that conversation. Quiet, unassuming, powerful. So here's the question that brings this story full circle. What's sitting in your home right now? In a drawer? In a box? In a jar you haven't opened in years? Are they just old coins? Or are they unrecognized assets waiting for the right eyes? Because somewhere out there, someone once ignored a penny that later sold for over $700,000. And someone else didn't. This is not about luck. It's about awareness and timing. The market rewards those who act before the crowd, not after the headlines. If you own old U.S. coins, especially Lincoln cents from the 1990s, now is not the time to dismiss them. It's the time to look closer. Because history has already proven one thing beyond doubt. The smallest coin can carry the biggest future. Imagine this for a moment. You're holding a penny, a single copper-colored coin you've ignored your entire life. It's been sitting in a jar, a drawer, maybe even your car's cup holder. Now imagine discovering that this ordinary-looking penny could be worth more than $476,000. Not a typo, not a gimmick. One coin, one moment, and a decision that could change your financial future forever. Before you dismiss this, ask yourself a serious question. How many pennies have passed through your hands since 2013? And what if one of them was never meant to be ordinary? A story hiding in plain sight. A story about the 2013 no-mint Mark Lincoln 1 cent. A coin that looks familiar, feels familiar, and yet has stunned seasoned collectors, investors, and auction houses alike. This isn't just about a coin. This is about awareness. Because history rewards those who recognize value before the rest of the world catches on. Act 1 begins in 2013, a year that felt routine for most Americans. The U.S. Mint produced billions of Lincoln pennies, circulating freely across the country. Gas stations, grocery stores, parking meters. Nothing unusual except that during this massive production run, something quietly slipped through. A no-mint mark penny, produced under conditions that created rare and highly desirable minting errors. Errors that weren't supposed to exist. Errors that collectors live for. And errors that today are being hunted aggressively. Here's the fascinating part. These coins weren't locked away in vaults or protected behind museum glass. They were released into circulation. That means everyday Americans, people just like you, were the first custodians of something extraordinary. And many still are. The fear isn't that you don't own rare coins. The fear is that you might have already spent one without ever knowing its true value. Yes, that should make you uncomfortable, because knowledge separates regret from reward. Now let's interrupt this for a second. Be honest. When was the last time you actually looked at a penny? Not glanced, looked. If you're laughing right now, good. That's exactly why opportunity exists. Wealth rarely announces itself loudly. Sometimes it whispers. In copper. Act 2 is where things get serious. This is where excitement turns into urgency. Because the 2013 no-mint Mark Lincoln cent, when combined with specific error characteristics, has entered a category of elite collector demand. We're talking about striking anomalies, die errors, doubled features, and production irregularities that transformed a 1-cent coin into a 6-figure asset. At the highest verified levels, examples have commanded prices reaching $476,000 in private transactions and high-end markets. That number didn't come from hype, it came from demand. And demand is the key word here. High-net-worth collectors don't chase common coins. They chase scarcity, condition, and story. This penny has all three. It represents a modern anomaly in a system designed to be perfect. The US Mint doesn't like errors. Collectors love them. And when supply is microscopic and interest keeps growing, value doesn't ask permission. It accelerates. Here's something most people don't understand. Coins like this don't stay quiet forever. Once awareness spreads, once enough people start checking jars and rolls, the window narrows. The market tightens. Prices don't drift downward. They spike. That's why seasoned collectors act early and decisively. They don't wait for headlines. They become the headline. Quick reset question for you. If a bank accidentally deposited $476,000 into your account and you ignored it because it looked normal, would you forgive yourself later? Of course not. Yet this happens every single day in coinform.by now. Some people are feeling excitement. Others are feeling fear. Both emotions are useful. Fear keeps you from missing out. Excitement pushes you to act. And action is where wealth changes hands. Act 3 is about empowerment. This isn't a fantasy story. This is a wake-up call. Because right now, across America, people aged 30 to 65 are rediscovering old collections, inherited jars, forgotten rolls, and cash drawers. And those who take this seriously are positioning themselves for life-changing outcomes. Selling a rare coin isn't just about money. It's about leverage, freedom, lifestyle, the ability to choose how you live instead of reacting to circumstances. The 2013 no-mint Mark Lincoln 1 cent has become a symbol of this shift. Proof that valuable assets don't always look valuable at first glance. Proof that opportunity favors the informed. And proof that wealth can be hiding in the most underestimated places. Here's the authoritative truth. The market is watching. Collectors are buying. Experts are verifying. And the supply is finite. No new 2013 pennies are being made. No new errors will appear. What exists now is all there will ever be. That's not pressure. That's clarity. So here's your moment. Not tomorrow. Not someday. Now, check your coins. Have them evaluated by professionals. Protect what could be yours. Because the difference between people who talk about wealth and those who live it often comes down to one decision made at the right time. And if you're still thinking, it's probably not me, remember this. Every major discovery in numismatics was once owned by someone who didn't know what they had until they did. Don't let hindsight be your teacher. Let awareness be your advantage. Because sometimes, the smallest coin carries the heaviest weight and the richest future. If you're ready to think differently about money, value, and hidden opportunity, then this is where your journey begins.